Welcome everybody to Kerry Darbishire's launch of Window of Passing Light, her pamphlet, which we're very proud to have published this month. On the 1st of October it came out. Kerry lives in Cumbria, as many of you do, I believe. Most of her poetry is rooted there too. And of course she lives with her artist husband, Stephen, a brilliant painter. The front cover of the book is actually one of his beautiful paintings. Her two full collections previously were published by Indigo Dreams. It was one was A Lift of Wings in 2014, and Distance Sweet on My Tongue was published by Indigo Dreams in 2018. Her biography, Kay's Ark, was published by Handstand Press in 2016. Her poems have appeared widely in anthologies and magazines. She's been placed in a number of competitions, and recently she gained second prize in Folklore's competition. She was commended in Grey Hen and Ware Poets competitions this year. And some of her work was performed by the Cumbria Opera Group's Lakeland Cycle last month. Kerry's third full collection, which was joint winner of the Full Fat Collection competition, will be published by Hedgehog Press next year. This month, we published her pamphlet, A Window of Passing Light, which will be on sale with her other books at the Cheltenham Poetry Festival when she reads there this month. It's available from Kerry herself. You'll get a signed copy, I'm sure, if you ask, through her email. It will also be available on our website, where she has a web page for it. We'll put it on amazon.co.uk, and of course it'll be available in bookshops, and the ISBN is on our website to order. So without any more from me, I'm going to hand over to Kerry, and she's going to read. After that, we're going to have her two brilliant guests reading. First, we'll have Pauline, and then we'll have Barbara reading some poems of their own. And then we'll finish up with another set from Kerry Darbishire. So Kerry, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you very much for hosting, and thank you for publishing this collection. I'm really excited about it. And thank you to all of you for joining me this evening. It's really lovely to see such friendly faces. I'm very much looking forward to reading and sharing this pamphlet, which could have been thousands of pages long, to match the many, many paintings I love. But I have distilled this collection down to actually and write from the artists, the sitters and the viewers' imagined and known point of view. So I just also to mention that some of the titles of the poems are in fact the titles of the paintings. So you can, if you don't already know them, you can actually Google and look them up. So this collection, the book is divided into two sections. The first part is called Studio Air, and the second is Plein Air. So I'll begin with the interiors and take you straight to Gwen John's studio in Paris, somewhere between 1907 and 1909. Portrait. Returning to the cultivated privacy of her attic room, 87 Rue Cherche Midi, Montparnasse, sparse gull-wing light pouring through the tall window, traces of thinner, harmony of pigment, meticulously laid on a wooden pallet. She faces a posy of flowers, set 2/3 along her writing table. She places the rattan chair at an angle, sometimes a cat, a parasol, blue scarf thrown over the arm, a worn white cushion inviting those melancholy models to sit and sew, read or stare motionless for hours. Did she ask them not to smile like her, preferring self-isolation to haunt each portrait while keeping her feelings for Rodin secret? All I know is, here amongst the unsold, dry-dabbed expressions of women stacked in varying sizes, girl reading at a window, girl holding a rose, and girl holding a book. She's taken down my hair like hers. I'm sitting like she sits, off center, leaning somewhere between sitting and standing, still a studio air, a color sound of yellow and vermilion, the promise of Paris held in each brushstroke. The second poem I'm going to read is after a painting by Mary Cassatt, after Young Mother Sewing. What are you thinking? Already you know the safe triangle of your mother's dress, black striped, luminous silk, the orange flowers in a Delft vase, smell of oil paint and thinners. Your third summer, tousled hair, face fresh with curiosity, wearing your best dress as if willing more changes. Your plump arm bent and digging into her arm, her warm lap. Perhaps you're bored with the art of sewing, Mama's deft hands working delicate white stitches on white cloth, and more interested in the artist, brushing in sweets of impasto, light catching ochre, Payne's grey, and touches of blue. Perhaps the Philadelphia air, beyond the strict uprights of the conservatory window, is enticing you to play on Sunday green lawns flowing into a wood. Yet the look in your eyes, fixed on me decades later, tells me that all too soon you'll know what lies outside this day. I've modeled many times for my artist husband, but my self-consciousness at stripping off my clothes to be drawn or painted always felt like the first time, and probably would do now. So this poem really is in a response to that kind of feeling. First sitting. Dare me nearer this late autumn afternoon. Let the joy and ease of youth reappear like absent birds. Let them land on my moon body, stripped of clothes, uncountable cycles, 2 births in 5 years. Let them nest in my belly, once swayed with daughters, cradled, womb dark, eager to beach new life, flying from reach with each turning tide, like baby seals sliding new into the world. Let confidence breathe. Don't be afraid of stormlight, how skin owns up. Let unpainted lips speak, sing the truth. Brave forests, search caves of old rain for belief. Draw every inch of breath I have with love. My hands sunk deep in the marsh of a scar that at first made you flinch. This next poem is, in fact, the painting on the cover of the collection. And my husband painted it many years ago on our first visit to Venice. He didn't paint it there, but he sketched and took notes and everything. So this is called Portrait in Venice. My husband sits in the garden drawing, and I'm inside remembering the way he painted the red window bench next to the marble pedestal table, cool to touch, laid with coffee, a small flagon of water and a croissant. We're in Cafe Florian, the oldest cafe in the world, paying 10 euros a cup, surrounded by art I will never see again, but don't know it yet. My scarf of burnt sienna, ochre, vermilion, Prussian blue, reflects the palette of Canaletto, his robed figures looking back from tall arched mirrors, Murano glass acanthus wall lights dazzling every alcove. He's caught me young, gazing out at St. Mark's Square, bathed pale as the fog that sometimes swamps the sinking streets and canals, while quartets play on in true Titanic fashion, and handsome baristas in their sail-white aprons serve espressos and cappuccinos to shade-seeking tourists. The window. A small bird perches on the kitchen chair, timid, full of hope, looking back at the way it flew in, the window someone closed. I remember my mother alone, holding on, watching her fingers flick like chaffinch wings, dreaming of her garden. I wander past the dog sprawled on the red sofa, photos of my children, shelves of poetry, and carry on upstairs, return to the highest room, just as I left it. Rembrandt dark, scent of lavender, wooden floor, silent, a candle, ceramic horse for company, my notebook abandoned open at the page of good intentions. The day I would write until sunlight bursting through the attic window was all that mattered. I couldn't resist doing writing in response. I get mixed up to whether these are paintings or poems, actually, because I would have liked to have gone to art school, but I didn't make it there. I met my husband. So I've been surrounded by art all my life. So I couldn't resist writing a poem after Edward Hopper. His paintings are so haunting and atmospheric. So this one is called Alta Hillsdale. Nights where space is immeasurable and the coffee tastes good, and who knows what time it is or where the light is coming from, but waits for you to walk the city streets, arrive alone at this cafe, wearing a pale orange hat and green coat. So I'm coming to the final poem in this first half, and I'm very excited and very pleased that Pauline and Barbara Hickson, who are now going to read, I'm really looking forward to hearing their readings, and thank you both for coming along to read tonight. So for my final, in this first half rather, is a painting after John Singer Sargent, 1892 to 93. And it's this woman in this painting is so confident and so bright and so beautiful. I just had to respond to this painting, and it's called Lady Agnew of Lochnaw. Today, I'm in command, informal for a change, and quite content to hide away from this bout of influenza. I have soft blue skies at my back and a window of passing light. I've chosen to wear my favorite dress, pale as pipits in flight, and to remind me of heather lifting off the moor, a lavender sash with ruched bows. I haven't worn it since Miss Elsie Palmer's coming out. It suits my rose complexion, ivory black hair and gay mood. I admit, to receive such attention for hours is to be showered with exotic gifts, be understood. His Florentine eyes taking great care, painting mine. He won't know what I'm thinking. To regret something is much worse. This floral Chinese chair holds firm as my husband's love. It keeps me safe from flight, even though I'm alone with an unmarried artist who has barely moved from his safe edges or spoken, except to raise my pendant and say, please do call me John, and I shall call you Gertrude. It puts me at ease, though the way he looks over his canvas lingers about my waist. I'm almost undressed. I gaze back, imagining the slide of a sable brush over my arms beneath folds of silk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kerry. That was a lovely reading. And you bring the paintings to life too, as well as the words. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks.
Now we're going to hear from Pauline. Pauline Yarwood is a poet and potter living in Cumbria. She is the coordinator of the Brewery Poets at the Brewery Arts Centre in Kendal and co-founder with Kim Moore of the Kendal Poetry Festival. Her work has appeared in The North, Strix, The Interpreter's House, and several anthologies. She was recently longlisted in the Norman Nicholson competition. Her debut pamphlet, Image Junkie, was published by Wayleave Press in 2017, and her second pamphlet, Loop, also published by Wayleave, was published in April this year. So Pauline, could you unmute please? And we're looking forward to hearing your work. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. Has that unmute worked? Is that,
Yep.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Kerry, thank you so much for inviting me to read tonight. It's an absolute privilege and I've been blown away by those poems. I did not know any of them before you read them, and I know so many of the paintings that I was just blown away. They're absolutely wonderful poems. And it's quite interesting because I know that Kerry and Barbara both write nature poems, and I don't really write nature poems, but I've chosen poems that are in some way reflective of nature, thinking that this might fit, you know, the theme of the evening. So, but I'm so glad to have heard those. Really, I'm just blown away with them. They're beautiful, beautiful poems. I'm so glad that they're in a pamphlet. So, okay, thank you very, very much for asking me. So the poems I'm going to read are based around, everybody who knows me from Brewery Poets will know that I tend to write quite a lot about just walking my regular loop around here. They're not strictly nature poems, but they reflect the ideas and thoughts and images that come to my mind when I'm walking, and not necessarily anything to do with specific things of nature. But so my first poem is War Zones. Run like the devil is on your heels. Scuttle your red-faced wattling into the woodland edge. Pick up your child, breathe fear, hold tight. Burst across the marketplace disbelieving. Rocket into your unlikely cackling takeoff. Blunder into your long-tailed flash of copper red. Creep along the bombed hospital wall. Stay small, be quick, dart in. Gunshot explodes against the valley, bounces back through the stricken trees. A bullet whip cracks past your ear, hits some distant bloodied concrete. You are visible prey to your invisible slaughterers. Enabled by distance, empowered by camouflage, they spread terror through fingers held softly on triggers. There's a sniper alley somewhere near you. Run like the devil is on your heels. He is, and he has a gun. Related very much to that poem, and obviously to do with the birds in the valley that I see a lot, the two poems are kind of connected, very much connected in fact. And this one is called How It Starts. I know they're firing at pheasants. I tell myself the pheasants are probably glad to be out of it, bred as they are in cages, close to where they will ultimately be shot. I know they're firing at pheasants, But as the shots resound from valley side to valley side, a sickening fear savages me, and the riot rises in my head until you can't tell me that I wouldn't fire back just to silence them. And this poem is a new one. I'm hoping it's finished, but apologies to any of you who think it might not be. And again, it was written after a walk, an evening walk, and looking at an amazing moon just over the river where I was walking, and then reading a newspaper article a little later on. There are two lines in it which reflect a Sir Sidney Philip poem and also a Shelley poem. They're not directly quoted, but it references the lines. And this poem is called Poacher's Moon. Oh moon, are you ready? Have you heard? You're a resource potential. Who knows what riches lie beneath your cosmic dust and debris? Excavation tools are being designed specifically for your gravity and regolith. Mining operations are planned to provide mission consumables, oxygen and water to me and you, so that life can be supported for long, long trips. We have an acronym, ISRU, In Situ Resource Utilisation. We're told if we're lucky, there'll be new materials for construction and road building. We're planning both. It'll be cheaper to mine you than send stuff up. There's nothing to lose, a ring of debris surrounds you already. We might as well dig, leave another mess behind us. There could be minerals, oxides for use on Earth. That would be a bonus. Raw materials here aren't what they were. Are you struggling with this? Are you defeated, gazing upon this reckless place? Will we read it in your looks? Will it not be strange for us that you are so changed? You pull our oceans, guide just hatched turtles down beaches to the sea. Migrating birds follow your rhythm. You drive the spawning of coral on the Great Barrier Reef. But moon madness is upon us. Were you once not blamed for lunacy? Reach your potential, we tell each other. Reach for the moon. Oh, we are, and I am pale from weariness, imagining it all. So the next poem is a lockdown poem. As our experience is narrowed and our focus changed, this was probably the only lockdown poem I wrote, and again it's about my loopy walk along the river. And this one is called Depth of Field. Days are becoming a smudge in the week, blurring out, matte finished. I walk for hours hoping to focus through this owl light, but my shoulders tighten and the haze deepens, giving only befogged images of what I know to be there. I feel I'm being drawn into another place, deeper into the tree, deeper into the water, deeper into a tiny piece of moss, until I blur to myself and move into spaces where I once was or where I might like to be. My view of all of you is blurring, as though I'm already a long way away. My memory of purpose fades and mists. I try to grab back a redness, any sense of some huge emotion that must once have swept through me a long time ago. But all is quieter, cooler, smudged. Okay, so on a lighter note, in some ways, this poem it's still to do with the village in which I live. It's a list poem actually, so apologies to those of you who might hate list poems. So it's contrasting dark and playful ideas at the same time. So I hope it won't take too long. This is the penultimate one, and the last one is really short. So this was written sometime after moving into the village from a bigger place. I've been here 30 odd years, I should say, now. Things you will learn. Which house needs painting? Which lawn needs mowing? Which hedge shall be trimmed? Which trees shall be felled? Which septic tank needs emptying? Who's left who? Who's with who? Who dragged the dying cow out of a shed? Who has planning permission? Who put the bull in the footpath field? Who's just been diagnosed? Who doesn't look after their sheep? Who uses weed killer? Whose dog craps in your driveway? Who died? How to drive through floods? How to get a cow out of a back garden? How many were at the funeral? How much a glass of wine is at the pub? How to drive up icy slopes? How much you feel like going to quiz night? How to comfort the bereaved? How to stop badgers digging the grass? How to save lives? How to walk past a bullock on a narrow lane? How to stop moles raising mountains? How risky is it to order a risotto? Why the postie had to leave? Why the power goes off? Why X doesn't speak to Y? Why the water tastes of chlorine? Why witches' knickers get snagged in trees? Why the traffic is so fast on blind bends? Why the shop is closing? Why you decided life might be sweeter? Why you miss the bright lights? Why you smile at the smell of gorse? Why you admire the elegance of deer? Why you love wood smoke? Why it's good to stand still and watch the heron? Why hearing lambs wrenches your heart? Why the best tree in the world is the oak opposite the kitchen window? Why the sound of the river is everything. And thank you. And my final poem, this was written that those of you who are from Brewery Poets, there's a group of us went to Mull a few years ago, ostensibly to write poetry. In fact, all we did was to drink, eat, walk all beautiful, beautiful places and just look for otters and sea eagles. And I don't think any of us wrote anything, but anyway, it was a fantastic trip, and I remember it really fondly. And on that trip, we took a little trip to the tiny island off Mull called Ulva, which is quite magical, and it involves a ferryman just to get to the other side. And of course, this term ferryman just led to this poem, but it's not, you know, it's quite good fun anyway. But so this poem is called Ulva. The ferryman leans against the tiller, waits. It's only a stone's throw, a narrow strait, less than a minute for him to carry souls who journey to know themselves differently, where they imagine their own world falling away, becoming used to small islands and sea, grasping whatever lies along the dark basalt shore, glimpsing otters, sea eagles, wild orchids, across the ancient lazy beds through bracken, alder, sycamore. 3 men stop to ask us, is there time? Did you find the path? The large black-bearded one stares repeatedly at his watch. The last ferry is at 5 o'clock. They hesitate, stumble over whether to go forwards or back, look anxiously for the path we couldn't find. We laugh, tell them there's plenty of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a lovely, lovely reading. And I actually enjoyed that list poem very much. It took me to rural places I've lived. Very, very good. Thank you. I like them all.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. And thanks again, Kerry. Thank you so much. And congratulations on your pamphlet.
Lovely. Now, we're going to hear now from Kerry's second guest, Barbara Hickson. And Barbara's poems have appeared widely in magazines, anthologies, and online journals. She's been placed and commended in several competitions, including Magma Editor's Choice in 2015 and 16 and 2018 to 19, and the Plough Prize in 2017. In 2019, she had 12 poems published in a shared collection with Gabrielle Griffin and Bev Morris, entitled Rugged Rocks, Running Rascals, which was published by Dragonspawn Press. Her debut pamphlet, A Kind of Silence, has just been published by Maytree Press, and I hear that there's a launch coming up for that as well. So, Barbara, can we hear from you, please?
That's great. Thank you very much, Janice, and hello, everyone. Actually, I've had the launch. It was last Thursday, so I can relax now and enjoy Kerry's. Okay, so anyway, first of all, of course, I'd like to offer my huge congratulations to Kerry on the launch of this gorgeous pamphlet. It is absolutely beautiful. And to thank you for inviting me to share this very special evening with you and Pauline. Okay, well, last year, when we were in the thick of lockdown, King Street Studios, which is an art gallery here in Lancaster, ran a project called Self-Expression in 7 Objects. And participants were invited to photograph a collection of 7 objects that they felt defined them in some way, and then use those items as a springboard for further creative output. And so I think I'll include a few of mine this evening, along with a few very, very recent ones. So this first poem is called Bee. You've never known a summer's heat, all clambered in an ecstasy of pollen, have never fumbled through Deutzia's frilly skirts or lost yourself in a foxglove's tempting tunnel, but have hovered here, tethered to a leather loop on the zip of my canvas bag, batting at the solidity of a grey, abrasive sky. I dream up a swarm of pewter bees, you and the others, each rejecting your role as guardian of car keys, house keys, zips and knickknacks, and see you clatter away, your solid little bodies searching out nectar, foraging in gardens and roadside verges, and all the time your wings glinting silver as you navigate your new and sensuous world. And I do actually have a few pewter bees. I've got them on all my keys and my USB stick. They've got loads of them, they're everywhere. And it's just so that really they're easily distinguishable from my husband's stuff. But people at work used to call me Bee, and the nickname stuck, and it's easy to see that these are Bee's keys, so that's why I have it. Okay, the next item on my collection of 7 objects was a coffee cup, and this is called Storm in a Coffee Cup. It's all here in this pot-bellied mug. The sea, the sky, the dark grey mountains that reach for the rim. It holds the waves' pulse, our salt sweat, the shudder of thunder as night rolls over the ridge and clouds collide. I cup my hands round this world's voluptuous swell and know it can't last. See it smashed on the kitchen floor, the ebbing tide, a rubble of scree, and me kneeling in the wreckage, trying to salvage what's left. I won't introduce the next poem, but I will say a few words about it afterwards. And apologies to those of you who were at my launch on Thursday, because you will have heard this already, but I'm going to include it anyway, because this again was one of my 7 objects, the compass. Compass. Can you smell the green heat? Feel bracken's breath rising. Hear flies drowsing among fronds. This tangled path is leading you, losing you, among tortoiseshells, ringlets, grayling, ragwort striped and stripped by caterpillars. Is it how you remember? Do you know this clearing scabbed by limestone, its clints and grikes? This heart's tongue fern, twayblade, helleborine, wiry hawthorn lodged in cracks. Follow into woodland clough, pick past boulders upholstered in moss, stacks of fractured karst. Steady yourself against silver birch. Where are the birds? This silence. Only wind hushing the trees. So many paths, root-knuckled, unravelling. Such dark openings in the earth. And that poem sprang from some time spent on Hutton Roof Crags, which is an area of limestone landscape about 12 miles north of Lancaster, where I live. It's a fascinating place of stark contrasts, and if you think barren moonscape with Fairy Glen, crossed with Fairy Glen, you'll have a pretty good idea of it, I think. And in the woodland cloughs, the thick moss and the tortured shapes of the landscape, of the limestone, really make it feel quite otherworldly and magical. And it is indeed an ideal place to get lost. The next poem is called Close Companions. She's keen to stride out, bag a fell or two, feel moorland grass, bedrock beneath her boots. I have to rein her in, satisfy her with country lanes, the gentle climb to the reservoir. As she swings along, limbs moving smoothly, I'm getting coconut gorse, savouring the delicate scent of apple blossom on an old tree birthed from a cast-off core. At the reservoir, oyster catchers patrol the border. A pair of goosander sail low like slowly sinking vessels. She's good company, my body, though she has her own way of telling me things, and my words to her are silent. At the crossroads, she points to buzzards circling over Quarmer Valley. We stand for a moment, tune in to the tremulous call of curlew, the lapwing's repetitive phrase. The Memory Stone. When you walk down to the shore to search the beach for sea glass and find instead a pebble that sits smoothly in your hand and roll it over and over, like the waves rolled it over and over, you feel as if the stone chose you, as if the chipped edge that reveals layers of sand and slate and sandstone is your story. Two rocks in one, separate, resolutely distinct. Irrevocably fused, they form a pleasing picture, an expansive bay, a brightening sky. But there's a fleck of white that might be a gull, wheeling over the cliff top, unable to land, unable to leave. So you can't tell whether it belongs there or if it's searching for a way out. You hurl the pebble back into the waves. It wasn't what you wanted, and you don't need another reminder of things you can't forget. Excuse me. Okay, the date of the title in this next poem is quite significant, so just make a note of it. Great Asby Scar, 24th of July, 2021. They think they've tricked me, that pair of kestrels hovering over grassland, wings twitching, and those sheep doubling as limestone boulders on the fell side. They know, but keep it to themselves. For a while they have me, scouring the rock-strewn plateau for the thunderstone, a glacial erratic, a rock of consequence, when all the time they know it's lodged in the dry stone wall, a dull-coloured lump of granite. But they can't deny me consolation, for when the sun sinks and the sky deepens, the thunder moon will roll into position, solitary and unmissable. And like Pauline's poem earlier, as you know, no doubt aware, folklore has its own names for each month's full moon, and the 24th of July was indeed the weekend of the thunder moon. So although I went looking for the thunderstone and never found it, I did see the thunder moon, and it was pretty impressive as well. Okay, I'll just read one more poem before handing back to Janice. And this is another of my 7 objects. And there's an intriguing story behind it, but sadly I haven't got time to share it with you. But I hope you'll enjoy this slightly mysterious little poem. And thank you all for listening. Whistle. Take care of it. Keep it warm and close as a lover's amulet, hidden safe against your skin. Only you may press your lips to its sleek lines, know the faded glyphs that hint at beginnings. Its loss once wrenched you from sleep like a scream. Protect it, treasure it, lest it fall to another's hands. It may not call to you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That was beautiful. I've never heard of the thunder moon before. Amazing. Was it enormously big?
It was indeed, yes. Yeah.
I think there have been a couple like that in this year, haven't there?
They have, yes, yeah, super moons.
Amazing. Love the poems. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go back to Kerry, and Kerry's going to read, I suspect, from the second half of her pamphlet. So, Kerry, can we have you back, please?
Thank you. And thank you, wow, to Barbara and Pauline. Fantastic poems. Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed those. I've been taken through woods to the sea, everywhere. Just lovely. Thank you so much. And congratulations, both of you, on your pamphlets as well.
Thank
and
you.
Funnily enough, I thought, how does she know my birthday? 24th of July. Okay, so I'm going to now read from, as Janice said, the second half of the collection, which is called Plein Air. And to the wild, it's really to the wild landscape in which I live. The first poem is after an artist called Delmar Banner, who was married to the sculptress Josefina de Vasconcelos. He painted the wild sweeping mountains that surrounded his farmhouse in Little Langdale in the Lake District. We used to go there occasionally, and it was quite an experience to be in both their presence. So this poem is after Delmar Banner, and it's called Langdale Pikes. He painted them from the sky as if he was airborne, had wings for brushes dipped in sienna, violet and terre verte, oiled and sweeping clean light over cairns, scree-filled tarns, herdwick-stripped grass, viper-riddled bracken. You have to stand back to view, and only then can you feel the raven wind whip your skin, mist soak your hair cool, fleeting moments of warmth on your shoulders between clouds, quick to stain crags raw umber, the color of eagles plunging into the mouths of gills. We're going to go further up the valley to Blee Tarn, which lies between Great Langdale and Little Langdale. And if anybody's been there, you know it's a lovely place to swim. Portrait of Water, Blee Tarn, Cumbria. A sable brush slides, slant. Rain stipples the surface. A rush of starlings shifts water, ruffles sky from storm to sunlight. Reeds dart, lamp black. Becks roll, titanium white, graphite grey. Bracken spills copper. Screes slip gold to a bowl of limestone moon, pale and singing to passing clouds. Perch jump, pewter melts, pours, ore and rock and seams ripple. Leaves scatter, skim, float. fells, fall, sink, drown. Find the right place and everything will come to you. Judith Stefano. Plein air. The ground has been roughly applied, then smoothed by a day's rain. Yesterday would have been impossible. Imagine walking over the surface and the brush is a journey. All morning, I step over bluebells, windflowers, under tall sunlight, angling thin pines, eager to strike open the golden view of the pikes from the river's edge. Smell the petrichor, earth, moss, tender ferns, ripe cones. No one walks by. No one is asking anything of me but myself. Don't cheat. Don't rely on guesswork. Observe. Never make a mark without first looking. Basics learned with the tap of a ruler on my wrist. Palette laid, I brush in woodland air. A heron lands, sheep graze into view. Sap green, umber, cadmium yellow flows brilliantly through the scene. A few years ago, I went on a wonderful retreat to Iona with Angela Locke. Margaret, who's here tonight, will remember the retreat and the time we had. And there was so much to write about. We wrote reams and reams and reams of notes. But this small poem is really the one that came out of the whole thing for me after I was sitting by the sea one evening. A sketch, Iona. How last night the moon weighed low, cast her swollen face to the sea, blushed out songs I've yet to learn, and stories to be told in the breaking of waves, drawing back, the wind whispering in lines, finding home on paper, colour settling like corncrakes to nesting ground. Another artist who I really love is George Clausen. I just think his work is so strong, vivid, and earthy, and perfectly reflects the landscapes and the people, the workers that he painted. This is my response to a painting called Winter Work, 1883 to 4. And just to say that in this painting, this poem, the workers are harvesting swedes. Winter Work. A short walk from home in Chillick Green, where birds flock and pheasants stalk a frosty field, the artist, already at his easel, lays his palette with late autumn. He wastes no time, making real how the man wearing a scarf, the swell of a robin's breast, leans, the shape of each muscle taut beneath his weathered jacket, sickle in hand, calloused, raw, topping and tailing the weight of 6 months. The day after leaves start to fall, green leaves slipping in waves to burnt sienna soil, grateful for a good crop piled hard as stone, and how the woman, worn as sackcloth, looks at the young girl holding a bag, pink, with a touch of charcoal grey, as if to say, will this keep us through winter? And so I'm going to read my final poem for tonight, and returning to the west side of Cumbria. But before, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. Thank you again to Pauline and Barbara for that wonderful reading. I've really enjoyed it and I hope you have too. Thank you for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And just a note that I want to say here, I'd like to think that the ending of a poem isn't the end, but an opening to something more. So my final poem, Dunnerdale Fell. How can I tell you about this place? Paint these spring miles of greening air, stained glass blue fells falling into the sea, an Irish silver shawl I could pull over my shoulders to stave off a northern breeze that no longer stirs a single curlew calling for another, or a skylark, as far as I can hear, lying as a stretched out hair, ready to give birth, remembering how nothing could stop my children racing from the nest like fell ponies, tugging at me, even now, as I rein in my 2 dogs, circling turf-sweet scents of 100 tiny creatures who pass through the quiet of last night, then watch them sink beside me like milk moons into soft, dry ground, hoping for a crust or a walk to the beck, muttering somewhere behind the round bouldered wall, gathering a thicket of blackthorn and birch, the way a flock of sheep is held from straying into the path of trade vans revving up the one-track road, where slate miners once labored like ants towards a new hill, filled their lungs with dust and walked home late, moorland spilling from their tongues.